Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Story Behind the Stories. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Eoin Devereux, news and sports reporter with the Neepawa Banner Press, and I'm joined this week by Kira Paterson, news reporter. She refuses to cover sports.
I mean, there's no sports to cover right now, so what's your beef?
Yeah, valid point, valid point. News reporter, again, with the Neepawa Banner Press. And we, each and every week, sit down and sort of share with you some of the details of what went on to put words on the page in our weekly little newspaper. So this week's edition, it's a little bit different. If we're going to do this, let's do it. Let's share the story behind the story. Pretty much nobody was in the office this week, for the most part. Everybody was still doing their job, though. Casper Werhan was home, was still able to work from home, though, and Casper stories we'll be talking about shortly. Diane Warner, who does all of our ads, a lot of our creative stuff, working from home as well, still able to put things together. Ken Waddell, I believe this was talked about during bingo recently. He was away, he was having some surgery done. He's recovering now. Perfectly fine, no issues whatsoever. Just a little sore, but he's fine. So he spent the entire week away. This is a Ken Waddell free paper. That's right, Kira. This is a real rarity. Where it's a Ken picked up the paper as we record this about an hour ago before this recording, and he, like you, is seeing it brand new, fresh. So. Hopefully we did a good job. I think we honestly did, though, and that starts with the very front page. We were able to get a picture of a couple kids playing hockey on Minnedosa Lake. It really came together nicely. We have to thank Kelly McGinnis, who took the picture. Also have a picture of, I'm assuming, Kelly's dog inside the paper. We all just went off on that picture, didn't we, Kira?
That dog. We wanted it on the front page, but we figured, I mean, people like kids more than dogs sometimes.
Well,
and
yeah.
I mean, some people do. I don't know. If people like hockey more than dogs sometimes, so I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of a broader audience for the front page to have some kids playing hockey. I don't know, but I wanted the dog on the front. Just saying.
Either way, it was a winner. Hey, I want the dog too. Wait a minute. If we were the only ones in the office, how did we not get the dog on the front?
I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was there.
Man, okay, I guess that was our first failure. I guess that is why we need Ken in the office.
Apparently.
But yeah, it was a great picture. Very appreciative of Kelly for letting us use those pictures. They really came out great. To go along with that, like I said, we've got the dog picture inside, and you're going to have to pick up a hard copy of the paper to be able to see it. So if you're in Neepawa, pick it up pretty much anywhere you see one of those bins. One or two businesses still have papers in them, so definitely get a hard copy of the Neepawa Banner Press. And once you do, pick it up for the pictures, but stick around for the words. And we got a couple words from a special guest editorialist this week.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, because Ken was in surgery when he normally is writing his editorial, so he recruited his son Mike to write an editorial for this week, and it is featured in the spot that Ken's editorial normally is. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously being related to Ken, it has some similar tones to it, but it is a bit of a fresh take. It's something new for that page,
yep.
Which is nice.
It still does discuss the situation with COVID-19.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's always good to have that different angle, as you said. Yeah, sure. Yep.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't as focused on COVID-19 as Ken sometimes is. Mike's was actually more focused on care homes and about how this pandemic has brought to light how some of the care homes are badly understaffed and under supported. And go ahead. I
got to give a shout out as well. When you bring up that point, that's so valid. But I got to give a shout out to Ken on that, because quite honestly, it was about 5-6 weeks ago. Ken did a story about an editorial about Rivera, and I'll be honest, I had no idea at the time what Rivera was all about in terms of a private operation running all of Manitoba's care homes. And now you see it on all the news stations, even the national stations, talking about the situation with Rivera. So Ken was really ahead of the game on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he kind of picked up on that before anybody else. But yeah, like I was saying, Mike is a little bit more about how this has always been an issue. So it's not necessarily about COVID-19, it's about this has always been an issue in care homes, this lack of resources. But it is just the COVID-19 has shone a light on it, has made it that much more visible. And hopefully the governments will learn from these mistakes and be able to put better practice in place.
Yep. And again, hindsight is so obviously 2020. How could we have known? But again, having said that, we still, even under normal circumstances, our healthcare situation and our situation with personal care homes, it's not good. It's not solid. It's just, out of sight, out of mind. And he shines the light on this. And he cites a few examples of where money was spent, where maybe it shouldn't have been spent. He talks about the Human Rights Museum. There was a lot of provincial money that went into that. It's a very important feature for the province, but at the same time, a very expensive feature. And he also goes in on the Blue Bomber Stadium. I mean, once again, it's something a certain subsection of people definitely enjoy. I do. Kira, you and your family have gone to games.
Yep.
But again, it's a very expensive venture. And maybe some of the money, could have been spent differently. And maybe we wouldn't be in the same situation. But you got to make up your own mind on this. So give that a read. It's a guest editorial by Mike Waddell. Always appreciative of any sort of editorials. Guest editorials are regular contributors, or even letters to the editor. Whether we agree or wholeheartedly disagree or whatever, we still appreciate that back and forth. So you can find Mike's in Ken section right now, page 4. Check that out. Another editorial, although not on the same basis, it's a monthly one that I do. It's that time again where for some reason they gave me half a page to spout off about nonsensical items. And this month I wanted to talk almost directly to Premier Brian Pallister. It hasn't been the best month for Brian, has it? At all, really, Kira.
No, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with terrible luck, but he hasn't been able to do much with that terrible luck either.
A little bit of bad luck, and quite honestly, Brian, I know you watch small public access television channels. I know you're here right now. It's a good portion of it's self-inflicted, Brian, let's be honest, all right? But don't worry, I'm here to help. An out of nowhere, small town, small time op-ed columnist can solve your problems. But you got to read it in this week's paper, Brian. And I know you read every single small town paper. That's all you do every single day. People bring in the Banner, people bring in the Killarney Guide, people bring in the Carillon, and you sit there and you read them each and every one, each and every day, don't you? Well, maybe not. But hopefully somebody will bring this around, because I came up with a few suggestions for you on how to turn this around. You are right now the most unpopular premier in all of Canada. And New Angus Reid poll that came out on the 1st, I believe, said that you were the worst. You were worse than Scott Moe. Less popular than Ford. Less popular than Jason Kenney. That really takes some special talents to be less popular than those individuals. And like we said, some of it's self-inflicted, but some of it's just bad luck. But I come up with a few suggestions for you to turn your fortunes around. I'm not going to give them away here. Again, we keep shilling for the paper, but we do hope that you will pick up a copy of the paper. I'll give you one, though. And this one popped up out of nowhere. For those of you who might not be aware, but you will be aware the next time you get your hydro bill, the hydro rate went up this month. Went up, I forget whether it was 2.9 or 3.9%.
2.9 is what you said in your column, so I
Yep.
hope that's the number.
2.9%. It went up. During a pandemic, they decided they were going to raise the hydro rate in the start of winter. Yeah, that's not popular, Brian. That's not a good way to get invited to all the best parties, really. Especially when you look just a little bit to the west, west.
No, west.
West. Yep. To Saskatchewan, where a day later, Sask Power announced that they were going to have a 1-year reduction in their bills of 10% for people to deal with the pandemic, for people to be able to take care of their bills and still have a little bit of money in their back pocket. That's where you could start, really. Give the taxpayers, give the homeowners, give the voters a little bit of a break. That would definitely turn your fortunes around a little bit, I imagine. But that's one of them. I have a few other suggestions for you, Brian, and hopefully you will take them to heart. You can find that editorial on page 6, I believe, of this week's edition of the Banner Press. And for all you readers out there, it's not just for Brian. You can read this too. Whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, whether you think I am out in left field, I want to hear your opinions. We actually got a couple of opinions on a column I did last month. Some of them were very much, oh, you're so out of your head. You don't know what you're talking about. And again, I appreciate that. That's the type of interaction I want. I want people, if they like it, if they agree with it, if they think it's funny, because there is some satire to these as well. You got to keep that in mind. There's a satirical nature to my columns. I've said it before. Ken brings history and knowledge. When Kate Jackman Atkinson wrote, she brought information and facts to it. And my columns, I'm the common man. I readily acknowledge that. I'm the common man. I bring a bit of sarcasm. I bring a bit of anger. I bring a bit of just, this is what I think most people are feeling right now. The only difference is sometimes I got the guts or stupidity to verbalize it and to write it down. So you can check that out, and hopefully you do. It's a nice little, especially during these stressful times, it's a nice real release for me to be able to say these things. So you can check that out. And Kira, unless there's anything else you want to throw out, one of these months we're going to get you to do a column.
Oh, no.
We want to hear your opinions on stuff.
I don't have opinions. I don't care that much about things. I probably shouldn't admit that, but
well, then that's an opinion.
There we go.
Yep.
My opinion is stop caring, people. You're too emotional. Just go with the flow, man. I swear I haven't been to Prairie Trichomes recently.
All right. Now you can check out Kira's column out in the next issue.
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be a short one.
False advertising.
Much like Kira, it's going to be a short one.
Wow. Whoa, shots fired, man.
All right. Very quickly, then, we're going to shift gears to actual relevant news. And this was a story written by Casper. And it was great to get this update. Touchwood Park Association in Neepawa has been doing some great things, making some progress in terms of expansion of its housing options and housing units. And Casper talked about a couple different things that are going on. One we've talked about previously, and another one that is relatively new. And it has to do with some housing units near the hospital, right, Kira?
Yeah, there's a couple different units. There's a little set of units right beside basically the hospital on Hospital Street, and then there's a few on Burke Street called the Osborne units. And yeah, I think this was maybe a couple months ago. It says in the article. So if you want to know the dates, read the article because I forgot to reread it before coming on this show. But it was a couple months ago that they did this deal, and now it's kind of slowly making progress and going through.
Yep. Story behind the story is we don't rehearse this at all before we go on. We're pretty much making this up as we go.
It's all on the fly.
Yep. The actual articles we do thorough research on, but then we just
Yeah, we just chat.
Yep. So yeah, it was very interesting to sort of get that update from Casper, and Casper also updated on the other project they're doing, a whole major rebuild of the I forget the
day
name.
program.
The day program. Yep. I should have remembered that because I was there when they broke ground back in the fall.
In August, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not fall.
Yeah. Late summer then.
I remember looking that one up.
Yeah, that was for the short remark, wasn't it, Kira? Yeah. Well, all right. You got me on that one. But I went over just the other day to get a picture, and I got to admit, I was surprised. And you can see the picture in the paper with Casper's story about how much it was actually completed. Like it's almost. It looks like it's almost done.
Yeah, the building itself is all up. The walls are up. The roof is up. It just needs some siding. I'm sure there's probably work to be done inside, but from the outside, it looks like it's almost done. And like it started in August. You think, holy cow, who are the construction workers that got this done so fast? It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's very interesting, and it's very much needed for Neepawa. So it's going to be interesting. This is going to be a story that we continually are going to be following up over the next few weeks and months and years. Oh God, years. All right. All right. Yeah. It's something we're going to keep following, and hopefully you'll be able to sort of see its progress and share it with us on that. Let's talk about your story, Kira. Or no, actually, yeah, let's talk about your story first.
I have a story? No.
Yeah.
What did I do this week?
Yes, Kira, you did work.
Wow. Who knew?
And you gave us an update on a very important thing. And I got to admit, I didn't know much about it. I'd heard of it, but I hadn't heard that much about 211 Manitoba.
Yeah,
Walk us through that.
I didn't know it even existed. Jeannie Barnaby at Home Assistance Neepawa District, aka HAND, she gave me a call and she said, so did you know that there's this service called 211 Manitoba, and they just launched the phone line, and maybe you guys want to do an article about that because it's a really important service in Manitoba. I was like, wow, yeah, I'll definitely do an article about that. That sounds awesome. So yeah, and it just so happened that they advertised this week too, so that's a bonus. But yeah, 211 Manitoba, it's, you know, like 911 is for emergencies, 311 is for like municipal questions, that kind of a thing. 211 is basically to connect people with services within communities. So in Manitoba, they have 211 all across Canada. Manitoba's just started in 2017. They started with a website, which is basically a database of all these services in different communities, where like health services, social services, employment services, senior services, all these types of things. And they just launched their phone line in October, and they've already had over 1,300 calls between October 15th when they launched it and November 23rd when they got their last update of numbers. And that's like a crazy amount. Obviously, this is a really needed service. It's really important. And I talk a little bit about what this service does. I talked to the director who talked about why it's important and how it got started and all this kind of thing. And yeah, there's a little bit of background information, what exactly 211 is, what you can get out of 211, all that kind of a thing. And I think it's really exciting that now they have a phone line where they can talk one-on-one with a person and give them the resources and the help and the advice that they need. And it'll kind of take the burden off of some 911 calls, because sometimes there are non-emergent situations where people think, oh no, I need help, and they call 911, but it's not really an emergency.
Yep.
So they can call 211, and that'll really help with the emergency responders not having to respond to all of these things that aren't emergencies.
It was a very interesting point you brought up there, Kira, and you do elaborate on it in the story where if, and correct me if I'm wrong, because chances are I am, off the top of my head, but it was about 40%, was it, of 911 calls that are actually not emergency related in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, that's what Daria Lukey, the director of 211 Manitoba, that's what she told me. That statistic was kind of on hand. That's part of their marketing information. And yeah, 40% is a staggering number of calls.
That astounds me. I always knew that there was that situation, that 911 dealt with that, but I didn't realize it was almost every other call. It's really just disappointing, and surprising.
Well, and sometimes people don't know who else to call, where else to get this information that they need. And so if you can remember 211, one of the little sayings that they always say is, if you don't know where to turn, call 211. And so basically, if it's not like I'm bleeding out, or there's a burglar in the house or something like that, or there's a fire or whatever, like if it's not immediate emergency and you really do need help, but not like for a police or ambulance to come, then
Right.
yeah, definitely call 211, because that is definitely going to help 911 be able to respond faster to actual emergencies.
You'll learn a little bit more about that. It is located on page 19 of this week's edition of the Banner Press, right next to this wonderful little frosty family. Kira, you took that picture as well while
Yeah.
you were out and about, weren't you?
Yeah, Sandra came. She,
Yep.
I guess, drove by there and said, "Did you know there's a family of snowmen at Riverbend Park?" I was like, "I'm going!" So I took a little hike down there.
And it was a good time for it. I mean, the weather we've had as of late has been so mild, so you don't have to be locked in if you're stuck at home. I mean, take a walk, go out and enjoy yourselves a little bit. Have that little bit of exercise. It'll do you some good.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, it's gonna be so nice outside for like the next week that family of snowmen might not even be there by the next week. Who knows?
Oh,
It's gonna be warm.
Oh, you had to depress us with
I
that,
mean,
didn't you?
it's a bittersweet. Like, yay,
Yeah.
it's warm, but poor Frosty family. They'll have to travel up to the North Pole like Frosty the Snowman did.
That's great. Wonderful that we were able to get that update and on 211. Let's talk about one other thing that came my way via email. I had no idea what was going on in Minnedosa, but I'm very happy to be able to share some of the details with you on this. It is a new online learning program put together by a father based out of Minnedosa. Dave Ternier, I believe is how it's pronounced. If it's not pronounced that way, Dave, I apologize if you're watching this. But it was very interesting. Countries of the Week is what it was called. And the website is countriesoftheweek.world. He came up with the concept in the spring, essentially. A way to teach his two young daughters not to be afraid of the world. With everything that's going on right now, we feel like we're isolated. We feel as though we're just sort of stuck. But he doesn't see it that way. He wants to teach his daughters that the world isn't something to be feared. It's something to be embraced. And when we do get to travel again, maybe something to be explored. So he came up with the concept of all the countries of the world, little write-ups, little information pamphlets, links to videos about these nations. And each and every week, he and his daughters would sit down and they would go and they'd pick a certain country out of nowhere and learn about it for the week. And it went over so well with his daughters that he thought, you know what? This has practical applications as a learning tool for all youngsters. I use that word a lot, don't I?
Yeah, you're like an old person. Why do you say youngsters so much? Jeez.
What do you mean, like an old person? I'm sort of if I'm not at the top of that hill, starting to roll down the hill, I'm pretty darn close. So, yeah. But Dave did a tremendous job with it. So he came up with the concept. He made the website go live. He put the message out there, and from the reception that he seems to be getting, not just from Canada, United States, Europe, Africa, Nairobi. He shared with me details of a family based out of, if I remember correctly, Nairobi, that contacted him and said, this is interesting. We look forward to the new country that is shared with us each and every week. So this thing is really going over, and it's a very practical, interesting learning tool. I'm very pleased I was able to get this information. Very pleased that Dave reached out to me on this, and I'm very happy to share this information with you. Anything you want to add in there?
Well, honestly, I'm tempted to sign up for it myself. I love travel. I love seeing different things about the world. And this is really, really interesting. I would kind of wish I was being homeschooled so I could be part of this school group thing. I don't know, maybe I can sign up without being a student, but I think it's really interesting. It would be so cool to see all the information about these different countries. Like, I don't know, I think it's cool.
Yeah, oh no, it is. You can go to the website, as I said, countries of the world, or country of the week, sorry, .world. And you can see some of the information with homeschooling becoming a thing after Christmas. We didn't have it in this week's newspaper because the announcement was made after our publication deadline, but starting in early January, there's going to be a 2-week period where a good portion of students, grades
7 to 12, yeah.
7 to 12, will be doing homeschooling again.
Remote learning, yeah.
Yeah. So that will be occurring, and something like this is a perfect example of how it could be done and done well. But as for that other thing about the remote learning, that's a story we're going to be following up on in a future edition of the Neepawa Banner and Press, because that's going to have a significant impact for a lot of people within our readership, a lot of people within the province. So we will be delving into that, definitely. We have a little extra time here. I wasn't going to talk about this, but we might as well, just to fill the time.
Sure.
Neepawa's Junior A hockey team has been trying to deal with the pandemic and the closure as best they can. They are a business. They still need to bring in revenue because bills still come in, much like Hydro, and that 2.9% extra they're going to have to start paying right now. But they're really amping up their online sales. They're trying to get the message out there. And I had a chance to talk with Landon Cameron, who has been so instrumental in spearheading the merchandise sales and their development and their exposure this year, and Derek Pearson, who is taken over as the marketing manager this year for Neepawa's Junior A hockey team. And they both shared some important details about how they've gotten the message out on social media, how they've been trying to get the information out there that you can still buy hats, you can still buy pucks, sweaters, hoodies, the whole 9 yards. And the thing is, it's not just the new stuff. I like the new logo, I like the new stuff, but you can buy the older stuff as well. The Chicago Blackhawks style logo, you can still buy that. The logo I designed for them a couple years ago, there's not much of that stuff left because I bought all of it. But you can still buy some of that stuff as well. There's a few bits and pieces of it still left over. Old historic jerseys as well. And they said that actually they've had a lot of people reach out from the US, Ontario, Saskatchewan. And Derek mentioned to me as well that collectors, like jersey collectors, hat collectors, puck collectors, have reached out to them and really are excited about that. So they're pleasantly surprised with the response to that, which is great. Yeah. Yep. So I think that's more or less, we got more in this paper.
Oh, yeah.
But you're going to have to pick up a copy of it for yourself, aren't they, Kira?
Yep. We've got more in this paper, but we didn't write it, so we don't know anything about it.
Well, we do read everything.
Oh, yes.
We have to do the spelling and grammar, even though every week we probably do miss one or two misspelled words or a well, no,
Commas.
You always get the commas.
You always miss the commas, so I have to get them.
But don't worry, in my editorial I put commas everywhere and Kira had to take them out.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can check out this week's paper. It is out and about in the community right now, or you can find it on mywestman.ca. A PDF version pops up there, so you can see all the ads, you can see all the articles and all the pictures just as they appear in the newspaper themselves. And if you have any suggestions for us, any news suggestions, an ad you'd like to place, anything at all, a letter to the editor.
A thumbs up, a thumbs down.
That's right. You can contact us at news@neepawabanner.com. Sports will become a thing again. And when it does, contact me at sports@neepawabanner.com. Or you can call us, 476-3401, the number we can be reached at. For sure, Kira and I will be in there.
We're always here.
Yep. We got nowhere else to go. And maybe next week, hopefully next week, Diane will be in there as well. Casper will be back, and Ken, a little sore, but he'll be back as well. And
Can't keep him away.
And maybe he'll be in this seat next week. Well, we'll see. We'll find out. But in order to find out, you're going to have to tune in next week to the story behind the stories. Have a good day.